is a Yemeni organization founded in 2005 in an environment where being a journalist could cost you your life. But when the truth becomes dangerous, telling it is more than a choice. It is an act of courage and resistance. Women Journalists Without Chains was founded on a simple belief that fighting for the rights of others is not a mere personal interest. It is a moral duty. Through its work, it has exposed corruption, documented human rights abuses, and defended those who risk everything to speak truth to power. Today, the organization monitors 21 Arab and regional countries, advocating for the rights and the dignity of the oppressed, and amplifying the voices of women who are disproportionately impacted by tyranny, colonialism, and authoritarianism. Journalism is essential because it keeps a close eye on authority and ensures that no government, no corporation, no institution, and no person in power can commit crimes without being confronted. Through journalism, the stories of the disappeared, the imprisoned, the dehumanized, and the murdered, these stories are not silenced. Every testimony recorded, every violation documented, and every story uplifted sheds light on what regimes and occupations want to hide and erase from memory. Journalism and free speech allows citizens to demand accountability, while censorship and propaganda enable impunity. And authoritarian and colonial governments thrive off of censorship and propaganda. They rule through a culture of domination, sustained by fear, a culture where obedience is praised as morality, criticism is punished as crime, and silence is celebrated as patriotism. Only the state's voice and those sponsored by the states are allowed to speak. They create a distorted reality where oppression is labeled as order and censorship is mistaken for peace. To keep their crimes hidden, to protect their image, and to control public perception, governments silence journalists through deliberate and calculated methods. Some shut down news outlets, others cut electricity or block the internet to stop the flow of information. And many governments construct and weaponize legal systems to criminalize political consciousness and journalism because they know that to expose the truth of state-sanctioned violence, whether structural, cultural, or direct, is to disrupt the state's monopoly on knowledge, and therefore its power to control the narrative. In Yemen and various Arab countries, as well as other authoritarian countries around the world, laws are deliberately crafted not to protect civilians, but to censor, monitor, and imprison political opponents, activists, and journalists who dare to speak up. Legal charges such as propaganda against the state, acting against national security, or spreading false information, along with cybercrime and the anti-terrorism laws, are all systematically exploited to justify indefinite detention and allow for cycles of prosecution without fair trial or legal representation. For many journalists, the experience begins with threats, intimidations, followed by home raids, abduction of family members, or forced disappearances. Once imprisoned, they are subjected to beatings, psychological and physical torture, humiliation, and medical neglect. This is not only to silence journalists themselves, but to silence society at large by making people fearful of the consequences of speaking. And therefore, they start practicing self-censorship. In Yemen, journalists are operating in an extremely hostile and dangerous environment. The war and the militia coup have destroyed independent journalism and have turned media outlets into tools of political, militant, and foreign interference propaganda. On the ground, assessing and publishing information that is credible, truthful, and real has become nearly impossible, and freedom of expression and speech has almost completely collapsed. Independent journalists are constantly targeted and are forcibly disappeared, and those who reappear after being kidnapped, they do so after enduring severe torture if they are not first killed. I remember Rasha al-Harazi, a Yemeni journalist who was killed in Aden in 2021 when an explosion targeted her car while she was pregnant. She dedicated her life to protecting others, raising global awareness, and promoting the safety of journalists. Her life was taken, but her voice continues to demand justice. In authoritarian countries, women journalists are often disproportionately impacted. They endure the same repression as their male colleagues, censorship, imprisonment, torture, while also facing sexual harassment, threats of rape, and other forms of gender-based violence. And for Muslim Arab women, they also have to face the mainstream narratives that reduce their experiences to religious oppression, when in reality, their suffering does not stem from faith. For many, it stems from authoritarian systems that discriminate against women and weaponize gender as a tool of silencing dissent and controlling expression. But despite all the efforts of trying to erase their voices, to minimize their stories or misrepresent their identity, women across the Arab world, like women across the world, we have always been agents of change.
Woo!
In the Arab world, people face two battles. One from authoritarian countries, and another from Western powers that colonize, imperialize, and militarily intervene in the region, denying people their agency and leaving behind nothing but exacerbated poverty, destruction, and broken communities. During the genocide in Gaza, various prominent Western media outlets that claimed to defend free speech became active participants in silencing Palestinian voices. They dehumanized them, justified their killings, and painted the oppressed as aggressors, while the occupiers somehow became defenders of peace and security. Meanwhile, Palestinian journalists who risked their lives to tell the world the truth, they were punished, imprisoned, tortured, starved, and killed. Between 2023 and 2025, the majority of journalists killed worldwide were murdered by Israeli forces using American-supplied weapons and Western propaganda. Over 270 Palestinian journalists were deliberately killed in Gaza. More journalists were killed in Gaza in 2 years than both world wars combined. But Israel's violence did not stop in Gaza. It extended beyond Gaza and into the occupied West Bank, intensifying surveillance, leading raids, and severely restricting movement and information flow, as well as targeting any person who documents this or reveals this reality to the world. As I stand here, I remember Shireen Abu Akleh, a woman journalist known for her unwavering courage and her voice that relentlessly reported on the occupation of the West Bank despite the threats and intimidations and the risks. On May 11th, 2022, she was killed by Israeli forces while covering an Israeli raid. But killing her and the countless journalists like her will not silence the message. It will only carry it further. We refuse to look away and we refuse to be silent. So let us use every chance, every platform, and every moment to speak up. Because silence, regardless of where you are, if you're in the Middle East, in Europe, in anywhere in the world, silence has never protected the oppressed. It only protects the oppressive and powerful. So let us use our voices in these platforms to talk about the genocide and the ongoing massacres in Sudan.
Yeah.
Where civilians' rights are stripped of dignity and taken in the most brutal and inhumane ways possible. Women's lives, women are targeted relentlessly. Their bodies have become battlegrounds with sexual violence used as a weapon. Women and little girls are raped and gang raped in their homes, in refugee camps, and on roads. Millions have been displaced and don't have access to basic life necessities. We will not turn our backs on Sudan and Sudanese women. Once the truth is seen and vocalized, it requires action. The fight for justice, no matter where you are, is not the responsibility of activists alone, or only those whose rights have been violated. It is a fight that belongs to all of us. Because standing up against injustices is not a mere personal interest. It is a moral duty. Thank you.
Woo!